live stream started on YouTube.
Well, welcome to each one of you for our third evening in the Fast 8 program. It's great to have each one of you joining us. So we have been thankful we've been able to feature live content each of the first three Saturday evenings as we're preparing to launch week 3 of the program. So I know some of you are just jumping on for the first time tonight. Welcome. I know others of you have been with us from the beginning, and it's good to have you back as well. As we begin, we are going to go right to some of the slides that we have prepared for tonight, but we are going to be taking your questions. So it is never too soon to start submitting those in the chat. We won't get to them immediately, but we do want to take your questions. We want to dialogue. We want to hear your stories. You know, are you having success? Are you frustrated? Are you wondering about the logistics of the program? So tonight, all of those questions are perfectly relevant because we want to take advantage of the opportunity we have of interacting in a live fashion. So whether you're joining us on Zoom, the chat function is enabled there, so you can be sending stuff through the chat, or whether on YouTube. So we have folks who are monitoring YouTube, and if you send something through there, they will route it to us as well. So with that background, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And kind of give you a little overview of where we're at, where we're headed. So I put this slide together a few days ago. I looked last night. I think we've got about 1,350 people who've signed up for the program. And as we expected, a lot of folks will sign up. They'll download the handout, and they're doing it on their own. But we've had over well over 1,000 of you who have at least gotten up to speed by watching the first episode. So that was 2 weeks ago. So there's kind of a lag. Folks are still jumping on the program. We still have people every day who are joining. And to put it in perspective, if you look at how many people watched last week's episode, I looked again last night, I think it's around 450 who've watched the second session. So there's quite a bit of lag as far as because people are jumping on at different times. And we have people engaging with us from all over the world. I heard yesterday it was a health professional from the United Kingdom who's wanting to engage with the program, share it. And I think they just jumped on. So people continue to say, hey, this is something that we want to engage with. And whether they're just using the handout materials that we keep updating. And by the way, your questions, the things that are coming in through the platform, through the timelesshealinginsights.org, coming to us on programs like this, you're helping us to refine the program. We're saying, oh, well, that's not clear. We need to make this plainer for folks. Or, oh, I could see where that would be confusing. Or maybe you've had trouble accessing some of the materials. We'll show you that because over the last week or so, we keep upgrading the ease of use of the internet platform. So if you've been frustrated and you jumped on tonight, you said, oh, I'm glad I could get on, but I can't get anything else. Things have gotten a lot simpler than they were 2 weeks ago. So I want to share that with you as well. So what we're going to do next is let you know about the spiritual support group. Some of you jumped on. We had 40 or 45 people who joined in real time. I think we've had maybe 80 now who've checked out that Wednesday evening support group. And that'll be even more important the next couple of weeks. And I'll tell you about why that is as we progress through the program. One thing I'll also mention is I see some things coming in through the chat. If you have specific questions about other diet programs, it's better not to just reference the program, say like, oh, have you heard of, the Atkins diet? Say, I've tried the Atkins diet or and I had this problem. Or what do you think of this aspect of the Atkins diet where I'm being encouraged to eat bacon and eggs for breakfast every day? So that'll help us all be on the same page and be more tailored to what your questions are as well, so that we can talk about the general principles, because a lot of these different diet programs are out there. And what I find interesting as a health professional, when someone says they're on a certain diet, I'm more likely to say, well, tell me about what you're doing, because people apply things differently. So if you're having challenges with something, or if something's worked for you, tell us a specific thing that you thought helped, or if you have a question about it, and we'll try to answer that this evening. Well, as far as other aspects of this program, this is a question that someone asked just this last week. I missed the first two sessions, and would like to have the materials from those meetings. I'm planning to join the Zoom meeting on February 18th at 7. So hopefully, if that was you who sent this question in, you're with us tonight. And please advise how I can catch up, or whether or not I should wait until the beginning of the next 8 weeks. Many thanks. So let's kind of walk through that. So it is true, we're planning to do a live session. At least we're talking about it here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is where I'm based right now. And we've been talking about, well, do we offer that live? Do we just upgrade kind of the videos that we've been doing for these meetings? And I'm not sure that we're going to stream something live beginning in, it would be April. So what we've been doing with folks is we're saying, up until March 5th, we're encouraging people to jump on, and even though they've maybe missed the first 3 weeks in real time, try to jump on anyway. Now, some of you, I know the response always is, well, why have I been on for 3 weeks already? Well, folks that are jumping on later, we're going to still encourage them to work with all the program goals that we've rolled out on a weekly basis. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, because some people are getting confused. Well, they're saying, well, I'm supposed to try each thing for a week. If I jump in 3 or 4 weeks into the program, I mean, how do I do that? Well, and the bottom line is, obviously, you're not going to be able to do just one of the goals per week and still catch up. So you're going to have to either combine some of the goals, or say, okay, let me just focus on the first week goals for a week, see how I do with that. Maybe I can do the second and third week together the next week as I'm catching up. So if that's confusing, just ask me. But the idea is, we still want you by the end of the program to be at the same point where everyone else is. So try to incorporate those daily goals a little bit quicker. And if it's too much for folks, we're just saying, hey, it's always okay to back off. So my main point to folks is that joining now gives you the benefit of getting this kind of group facilitation, going through this process, interacting with these live programs that we're doing. But like I said, if you can't get caught up, if you can't say, hey, I've tried all of these, weekly challenges to this point, and maybe it's only 3 or 4 days that you did the leaf stem and flower fast at the beginning of the meal. By the way, I'm just going to tell you what early feedback we're getting. And if you were with us Wednesday night, this is not a surprise to you, but people that are doing just that component, a lot of them really excited. So again, the goal of this program is not to see how fast you can lose weight. It's to see if you can learn strategies that you can continue for the rest of your life. So we're not expecting that all of these 8 fasts are going to be incorporated by all of you for the rest of your life, but we're exposing you to these different fasting techniques. And you're asking each week, is this something I can stick with, at least for the rest of this program, this 8-week program? But then even more than that, which one of these things, one or more, can I stick with long-term for the duration? And a lot of folks really excited about the leaf stem and flower fasting component. And as you see on this final bullet point, if it's really too difficult to catch up, if you just feel like it's too much, you say, I really need to do this 1 week at a time like it was designed, that is fine to drop back. But if you still want to catch up and drop in on these sessions in real time and still have an opportunity to dialogue with us, that is fine as well. So these are resources for you. Okay, so this person I did encourage to join us tonight. And they also asked about the program materials. And that's what I think is really exciting. I know some of you have had challenges. Well, how do I get the most recent handout? The handout was just updated It was, I think the update went out yesterday, actually. So let me just double check here and tell you what version that we are on. So I believe it's version 2.6. That's what it is. So if you look at the top of your handout, if it says something other than 2.6, you've got an older version of the handout. And some folks said, but I went through the first 2 weeks with the older version. That's fine. You don't have to reread, but I have updated things. So when we get questions or things aren't clear, we're actually changing things for the early weeks of the program too. So it doesn't hurt to go back and look at that if you're saying, well, this isn't working for me that well, or am I doing this right? Read the most recent version of the handout. See if we already answered your questions, because a lot of you have been asking some very good questions that have been helping us refine the instrument. So how do you get that most recent handout? The best way to do it, the smoothest way, is just go to timelesshealinginsights.org. And we're going to blow this up in a minute and kind of show you. So this is what the home page looks like. If you go to timelesshealinginsights.org, if you've not been on that page much, if you scroll down past Fast 8, we have all kinds of other resources for you. We have that 30-day program that we've talked about. Some of you I know are doing that. If you have questions about how the two programs interface, we can talk about that again. Just send it to us in the chat tonight. But if you see that Fast 8 program banner, I'm just going to blow that up for you here. And if you notice here, this is personalized for me. So I signed up as David DeRose, and it says now when I pull up, go to timelesshealinginsights.org to the home page for our free resource page. You'll see under Fast 8, it now says, thanks for registering, David. There's not a button to register. So some of you were getting in these loops like, oh, every time I go on, it says, if you've registered on the device that you're locating. I registered on my computer and it didn't recognize my phone. So it didn't realize I was the same person. But, don't ask me how all this technology works. But anyway, if I go back on my computer, it recognizes me as David, and I click here to download the program information. You see that button there, View Handout and Sessions. Let me just blow that up so you see what we're talking about here. So it has the program. Thanks me for registering. If you see that, it's recognizing you. If it says, sign up here, something happened. Your registration didn't get linked to the device that you're accessing the home page on. So if that's happening, just register again on that device. It'll recognize you, and then we can kind of go from there. I know you got questions coming in. My wife Sonia is keeping an eye out for you. So Sonia, we'll get there in just a second. I want to just make sure that folks see how this process works. I know some of them may have questions about it, but let's go to this View Handout and Sessions. If you click on that button, once you're registered, it will bring you to this page. And a lot of you have done this. You've got it down pat. Watch on Zoom, watch on YouTube, download handout, and you're likely on Zoom or YouTube right now because you did that. That's the easiest way to log on to the weekly sessions. So here's the first thing I'm going to tell you about the next 2 weeks. So we launched this program on kind of short notice, or maybe I should say my speaking schedule is booked on kind of long notice. Whatever the case may be, I had booked some weekend speaking engagements for the next 2 weekends. If you're in the Albany, Oregon area, I'm going to be out there next weekend, so I won't be able to be live on this platform. And then I'm at a conference in another venue the following weekend. So we're pre-recording the next 2 sessions. So tonight is really the best night to interact. The other option for interacting is it's looking like one or both of the, let's say it this way, all of the next 3 Wednesday nights, maybe with the exception of one of them because of our travel schedule, we should be on live. So the other opportunity to have live interaction is on the Wednesday night sessions, and we'll talk more about that as we move along. But right now, hopefully you've seen how to interact with the materials. If you're doing it right now, you don't have the latest handout. We got some great material in the handout that we're going to cover tonight. So it's nice if you've got the current version, because stuff that I'm covering tonight is only in the current version. Go to that download handout and feel free to download that. Okay. And just one other thing, if you're on that page, once you click on that page, you've registered already, you'll see what I just showed you first. This is how your screen will look. And then as you scroll down, I've kind of shrunk everything just so you can see what it looks like as you scroll down. And as you scroll down, you see here session 1, session 2. So all the pre-recorded sessions, anything you've missed is there. We have the spiritual support group. I think I took a screenshot before we had that archived on there. But it takes about 24 hours before you can access things through the website. If you want to be able to access things right away, just subscribe to the YouTube channel, because it's YouTube that puts this out. So if you're watching on YouTube, just subscribe to that channel. Then you'll get notified when at the end of the recording, and you'll be able to access things right away. Okay, so let's take some of your questions. Sonia, do we have any logistic questions? So my wife, Dr. Sonia DeRose, also a physician, is helping us answer the questions, screen the questions, and answer them tonight.
Do we have any logistic questions, you said?
Yeah, anything about what we just covered, first of all. About that?
No, I don't see any logistic questions, just health questions and a comment.
Okay, so that's reassuring. So it sounds like you're either tracking along or it's so confusing you don't even know what to ask. Hopefully that's not the case, right? Okay, so before we get into,
I
okay,
have one
Robbie?
yes, I have one, well, just I guess a statement kind of.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure what I'm on right now, but I actually went on the not the YouTube, the other one, and I was on early. I mean, I got on real early because you had said that it might be a lot of folks, so it may be hard to get on. So I've been on. I've been on since 6:30. However, it did not. It kept saying waiting for host, waiting for host, waiting for host. So I thought that by the time it says 7:05, I said, well, something's wrong. So I'm not sure.
So you didn't get let in.
Right. It didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, listen. Well, I'm sorry for that, but let me also share this. And it's good that you're bringing this to our attention. So, what happens is the first night we did it, we let people in early, and because of the way we had things configured, a lot of you, as you were waiting for the program to start, your video was still on, and some of you were, wandering around and things. And we said, people probably, if they're just waiting, and the program hasn't started, they're not thinking that anything's being recorded. So out of courtesy to those of you who are jumping on Zoom, we said, you know what, we're not going to let people in until right about 7 o'clock, and then have a screen showing even then. So that's how we configured things last week. And somehow it's possible that the Zoom link, my IT folks will straighten me out if I'm wrong, but it's possible maybe the Zoom link even worked before we had started the session. So you're kind of in this nowhere land. And so when we
waiting for the host.
Yeah. So the practical message is, yes, we're not letting anyone into the program until right about the time to start, but we're definitely on, within 15 minutes, and have things configured of the start time. So if any of you, we won't be live the next 2 nights, so the next 2 Saturdays, so we won't have Zoom options. So, you won't have to worry about it. But the following night, which would be who's looking at a calendar? Sonia, can you help me with that?
So it'll be
Here we are.
3 Saturday nights from now.
Yeah, so that one will be, we're
March
planning
11.
to be live again. Yeah, so March 11, we're planning to be live again. So if you're wanting to interact on Zoom, don't jump on probably before 15 minutes early. And if it's within 5 minutes of the program, if it's 6:55 and no one's let you in, that's normal. Okay, because we're not letting people in until right about 7. So yeah, so just try to jump on a little bit later. That's the only quick solution I can think of. If you get on really early, it's possible that maybe it's not notifying us when we actually open up the
Right.
session.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for bringing that to our attention, Robbie. Okay.
Okay. All righty.
Okay. So Sonia,
So
what
I missed the first few parts.
okay, well
Okay.
basically what I did is just made sure that people were aware of how to get the resources, and I see someone sharing through the chat that they're having a challenge getting the handout.
Yeah.
If you have trouble with any of those links, just send something to us through the you can communicate us with us through the portal, okay? And that means when you log on to the website, when you communicate with us there, we'll get that message. Some of you we've been dialoguing with through the Timeless Healing Insights website. And if you're having trouble getting something, go ahead and let us know. I'm also happy to give you my email address, put that out there for you. It doesn't mean that I see all those, so don't say, oh, well, this is a chance that I can have to dialogue with Dr. DeRose, but this is the email address that we use for our programs. So if you don't get a reply to this, send it again, because it's not always monitored as carefully as some other things. But it's just Dr. DeRose, so Dr. DeRose. Sonia, maybe you can put this in the chat. Dr. DeRose at compasshealth.net. So compass, like giving you direction, health.net. So Dr. DeRose at compasshealth.net. And since I'm mentioning that email address, I should ask you a question that someone asked me last week. It wasn't on a live session. They said, well, what happened to Compass Health, Dr. DeRose? We still have a website called compasshealth.net. And that's the website we use for our the resources and things that we sell. It's a commercial site. So if you're wanting our books, videos, things like that are for purchase. The Timeless Healing Insights website is strictly for all our free programming. There's free stuff on Compass Health as well, but we've been focused on the Timeless Healing Insights because that's the platform we're doing the Fast 8 program from, and that's where we're putting up all this free content. We have a half-hour television show that goes out on many TV networks. So you can find that there, called Timeless Healing Insights TV. That's a 30-minute show, all at that timelesshealinginsights.org website. We have a 1-hour radio show. A lot of the radio episodes have been focused on things that relate to weight loss over the last month or so. So that's a resource that we have for you, but that's all totally free. Compasshealth.net is the website we've had for many years. And we have if you go to like our store, there's all our books and the videos that we sell, DVDs or downloads, things like that. So we've not been putting that out there. That's not our focus in these programs. But if any of you are like that person who said, well, why am I not finding this on Compass Health? That's a different set of services are there for you. Okay. So Sonia, I see that there's some testimonies and some things coming through. Why don't you share those with us, and then we'll maybe take some of the other questions.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say again, give our condolences to Stacy. She says that she says it's been a rough sorry to start on a rough note. It's been a rough day. I'm traveling and in Michigan. My father-in-law entered his eternal rest today. My heart hurts. Today was a bit off. However, I did have my fresh broccoli before dinner. I'm not sure how long I can be on here this evening. Thanks. And she had a question also, so maybe we can answer that one first if she's still here. It says, my question was on tips for traveling and eating fast food, or where I am now doesn't have the easiest access to fresh produce. Any tips are appreciated. Thanks. Okay,
so let's talk about a few things. So first of all, Stacy, our hearts go out to you with the loss of that, close loved one. And, it's not only is grief difficult, but it's challenging for lifestyle programs. So we appreciate you making a point to at least jump on with us. And I know there's probably a lot of you that are dealing with maybe not something of that magnitude, but maybe it is, or maybe it's something that's worse as far as what I'm saying is not to minimize Stacy's loss, but everyone evaluates things differently. And, someone's talking about the most horrific thing they've ever been through, and someone else says, well, that's nothing. I went through that, but now someone stepped on my toe. And, it's really traumatic. And I'm not making light of anything. I'm just saying one of the things we see as health professionals is we can't measure someone else's trauma. We can't say, well, that's all you're dealing with. You just lost your job. Well, I lost this. We can't measure that. But the bottom line is all of us face difficulties. It's a real challenge when we go through these difficult life circumstances, when we're trying to especially get on a new program. So Stacy, again, our hats off to you for sticking with it in the midst of this difficult time. Having said that, there's an amazing thing. The more difficult it is to stick with a health behavior change, the more powerful it can be if you stick with it. And I think I shared with some of you on one of these sessions, sometimes things get blurry because I was just doing a lot of public meetings last week. But I was sharing about my getting on a regular exercise program years ago. At the time I was living in Minnesota and didn't have access all the time to indoor exercise options. So although I can't say I did 100% and, followed, that program precisely, like getting out, every day or 6 days a week, it really kind of helped me down the road. If I could pretty much get on an exercise program in Minnesota in those Northern Plains winters, I could do it in Indiana, or I could do it. So there's this kind of flip side to going through difficult things, and it's an opportunity. It's a tough time. And believe me, I'm not comparing living in Minnesota to losing a loved one, but you understand, I'm just making that parallel because when we go through difficulties, it actually can powerfully kind of reinforce behavior. So having said that, we had a program participant. You can see I've run all kinds of programs over the years. We had a program participant with us who jumped on Wednesday night and shared with us that they're in Alaska with difficult access to fresh produce. What do you do in these situations? And one of the things that they identified is canned foods. And sometimes, and I forget what they had mentioned. I think they mentioned maybe canned broccoli and cauliflower, if I'm remembering correctly. In some places you can get canned greens. Now you might say, well, that doesn't sound all that good to me. But the bottom line is do the best you can. My wife and I were traveling in a rural area about a month ago, and we needed to get some, we were looking for some good fresh produce, and we couldn't find any. We were in a rural area that didn't have a lot of options. And we looked in the canned foods, and they had canned collard greens. So that was one of the better options that we could get there. We were traveling again. And now some of you might think this sounds weird, but when we've been traveling looking for these kind of good food options, we have even eaten things like collard greens and mustard greens or spinach out of the can cold. You say, well, that's pretty austere, but the point is there's usually some kind of option you can find. Celery is often something in a lot of places you can find. And again, what's really important is developing these habits that you stick with. And if all you can do, you said, all I could get was one stick of celery for the whole week, then divide it into 7 pieces and just reinforce the habit at the beginning of one meal a day. I'm going to just have this piece of celery. And you say, well, how is that going to help me? This is powerful because it's reinforcing these habits. Remember, we're trying to develop these behaviors that you can stick with. And so the exercise session may not be a half an hour, but if you're developing a habit of exercising every day, 5 minutes can be extremely powerful as far as reinforcing that habit. Sonia, what other questions?
Okay, another part of question she had was, she said, I think the caloric beverages included orange juice. I do like drinking that. Oh, my screen just changed. That's really weird. Okay. Let me start over. I think the caloric beverages included orange juice. I do like drinking that with breakfast. However, I get the calories. Or is this meaning soda pop and sweetened drinks like tea, coffee, lemonade, etc., and hot chocolate, etc.? Thanks.
Okay. Well, thanks for bringing us to the content for tonight. So let's go right with that. I stopped sharing my screen. I know that may have thrown you off, Sonia, maybe a few of the other of you.
It's fine. It just made my screen move. I had to find it again. No problem.
Okay, so we're going to go back to that because let's go through the content for tonight because I see you're already asking about it. So tonight, what we're especially wanting to look at is this topic of sugar sweetened beverages. So if you've got the copy of your handout, and I'm deliberately trying not to reference pages because if some of you notice, the page numbers are changing because we're adding material even to some of the previous weeks. We're taking some things out. Some things were unclear or it's saying, oh, this program is starting on a certain date. Well, it already started. So we are continually updating the handout. But if you go down to week 3, that's where we're at, beginning February 19th. Now, some of you are looking at your watch, you say, well, it's February 18th. Those of you who've been with us for a while have figured this out. We do the Saturday night sessions before the new program week starts. So the program weeks are set to start on Sundays. So week 3 starts on Sunday, February 19th. We're recording this and doing it live, February 18th, Saturday night. So the goal that we want you to start with tomorrow, that's when this week 3 starts. And I'll just read it to you. This week's challenge, we want to encourage you to avoid essentially all caloric beverages. We make an exception if you're prescribed something by a healthcare provider. Now, remember, our job is to encourage you, okay? It's not to be prescriptive. So if you say, the question is about orange juice, and you just say, there's no way I could leave off my orange juice, we're not telling you can't have any orange juice. But think about it because we're going to talk you through why we're asking you to avoid these first of all, sugar sweetened beverages, but you'll notice here the goal is not just sugar sweetened beverages. The goal is we're encouraging you to avoid essentially all caloric beverages. So as far as our ideal program recommendations, it's okay to use lemon in your beverages. Fruit or vegetable infused waters are also acceptable. If you must sweeten your beverage, we recommend you choose stevia as opposed to artificial sweeteners or sweeteners with calories, okay? So first thing, if you say that bar is too high, and our message in this program is you set the bar low enough so that you can clear it. So every week, we want you, if you're just on for the first time, if you're on for the third time, this is our 3rd week, we're telling you, don't set yourself up to fail. We're trying to build a track record of success. So if you say there's no way I can get through a week without orange juice, then don't make your goal to be 0 orange juice. But we'll talk about some options. Maybe it's going to be diluting the orange juice. Maybe it's going to be having half as much orange juice. Maybe it's use the orange juice as flavoring in your water and make it kind of an orange drink with the natural orange juice. You say, oh, that sounds terrible. Again, you're the one setting the goals. We try to give you the kind of the ideal that'll optimize your benefits as far as weight loss as well as health goals. So let's first of all say at a minimum, I would love for you to make a decision to get rid of all the sugar sweetened beverages. So I just want to talk with you about that first. So here's a list, and you identified many of those in your question. So the regular sodas, the sweetened fruit drinks, many of your sports and energy drinks, they're people say, well, I need this. I go out and I exercise for 15 minutes. Believe me, you don't need an exercise drink with sugar in it to get your electrolytes into you better. Yeah, if you're an athlete and you're out there for several hours and maybe you're sweating a lot and maybe you're out in the heat or working in a hot environment indoors, yes, those sports drinks that have sugar in them, the sugar does help to move electrolytes into your body more efficiently. We call them, they're based on a concept of oral rehydration solutions. But the average person doesn't need these, okay? Sweetened waters, we're encouraging you to try to get all of these things off of the list for this week. Pre-sweetened coffee, tea drinks, and then even coffee and tea to which you're adding sugar or a flavored creamer. So all of these things are sugar sweetened beverages. And if you look at the data on these things, I mean, most of you, if you're like the average American, you're using these things. I mean, it's staggering. And it doesn't mean if you look at these, say, well, I looked at my, coffee sweetener and it doesn't say sugar, it's got fruit nectar and sucrose. Well, that's sugar too. Okay, so for the sake of what we're talking about, sugar sweetened beverages, you talk with experts in the field who are trying to help people to get away from these things. You'll see the long list here, and this is in your handout, from cane juice to dextrose, fruit juice concentrates, molasses, sugar cane, all of these things on the list, honey. Some people say, but aren't these better than pure white sugar? Well, yeah, you're going to get some more nutrients in honey or fruit juice concentrate compared to the to white sugar. But still, these are concentrated sweeteners, concentrated calories. And if we're trying to really get a handle on our weight, these things are not our friends. So we'd love for you this week. Now, remember how the program works. Set the barrier such that you can clear the hurdle, at least for this week. And if you could say, you know what, I think I could do it for this week. I could leave off the sugar sweetened beverages, at least lock in with that. And then at the end of the week, say, could I continue it as well as adding next week's goal? Or was that just like really rough and I've got to go back to at least having a little bit of X, Y, or Z? So you're making those decisions as you go through the program, and we'll take your questions about it as we go through. Here's why it's so important. We're just looking at 12-ounce servings of some of these common drinks that people are consuming. There's a nice handout that the CDC has put out called Rethink Your Drink. And they give some of this data there. So you say, but I'm just, it's a sports drink. This is for my health. There's 5 teaspoons of sugar in the typical sports drink. That's 97 calories in that drink. Maybe you're using a sweet tea or an energy drink. Maybe it's a regular soda. I mean, look at the calories in some of these options. Again, this is all in your handout, the updated handout. So you can consume a lot of calories and say, well, how much difference does that really make? So the next graphic that we have for you, I'm not sure that we put this in the handout, but I think we have the data in the handout, but we've graphed it here for you. This is if the only difference in your lifestyle as a result of this program was leaving off your one drink of regular orange soda a day. If all the rest of your lifestyle was unchanged, you're still expending the same number of calories, you're still eating everything else the same, nothing else different, it would make a 20-pound weight difference in the course of a year. I mean, that's really staggering, right? So again, 20 pounds in a year, how much is that in a week? It's not even a pound. And because we have fluid shifts and things, you may say, I've been doing this for 2 weeks, my weight hasn't changed, or it's up a pound. It doesn't mean you're not on a trajectory of success. If you're developing habits, lifestyle habits that you're going to stick with, and you're making some of these changes, you are on a pathway to healthier weight and better health. Because it's not only the calories that are involved with these sugar sweetened beverages. Both my wife and I could tell you over the years, we've seen many people with gout. And this is a more recent connection, at least I've seen, discussed a lot more in the medical literature, is that these sugar sweetened beverages, especially things with like high fructose corn syrup, are a major trigger of gout attacks. People used to say, well, the alcohol, the cheese, the rich foods, the meats, these sugar sweetened beverages are major drivers of gout. And gout is a leading cause of arthritis. You may not have even been diagnosed with gout, and you're not aware of why you're having these joint pains. You may have a component of gout, and getting away from these sugar sweetened beverages can make your joints feel much better. So just a few other facts about sugar sweetened beverages and why we'd love for you to get away from them. They're the leading sources of added sugar in the American diet. This slide, a little bit more careful source, was saying leading sources, but a lot of data sets, it is the leading source of added sugar. So if you want to get rid of sugar in the diet, it's not reading labels on boxes, it's looking at drinks. That's right. And these sugar sweetened beverages, as I mentioned gout, you can see at the end of the list, but they're linked to weight gain, obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, This is another big problem, non-alcoholic liver disease, fatty liver. Sonia and I, in our patient populations, just lots of people with fatty livers. And one of the things driving this epidemic of fatty liver, by the way, fatty liver, a lot of people say, well, yeah, I'm fat. So of course I'm gonna have some fat in my liver. Fat in the liver is not innocuous. It is, it's basically toxic. It's an irritant. It's promoting inflammation, and people can have cirrhosis, liver scarring, and liver failure from fatty liver. They can get this. It's actually a hepatitis. We call it NASH, non-alcoholic steato or fat-related hepatitis. So this is real stuff. And we see patients with it. It's not like, oh, well, we read about it in a textbook, we better tell people. And this is real stuff affecting a lot of people. For some of you that you've been wondering, well, you're not giving us enough references. We put some medical references in there for you this time. And then this data for you, just to make you aware that if you're not using sugar sweetened beverages, you're abnormal. Okay, so this is one of the other themes in this program. If somehow you think people are telling you you're bad or you're not doing right, it is normal in America today and throughout many places of the world. I know we have international viewers, to be on a lifestyle that is promoting weight gain. And if you look at sugar sweetened beverages, it's about 2/3 of Americans on a daily basis are eating these sugar sweetened beverages. So it's just, if this was the only change you made in the program, like I said, it could be 10, 15, 20 pounds over the course of a year, even though you may not see something dramatic in a week or two. And this is just a graphic looking at just how frequently, so you're living in a good state. I told you we're headed to Oregon in a few days to do live meetings there. And they're doing better than most places. It's still, look at 44 to 52%, I'm rounding, of Oregonians that are using sugar sweetened beverages daily. Here in Indiana, where are we at? We're in the 60% range. Some of you are joining us from other states where it's over 2/3 of the people. The bottom line is, as a country, we're not doing great. Okay. So leading source, like I said, of sugar in the American diet. So it's a huge thing that you can make a difference with. But let me come back now to the goal for this week. So if you're going to set the bar lower, I'm trying to challenge you, if you're not going to leave off the orange juice, the fresh juices, at least try to leave off the sugar sweetened beverages. Can you make that as a goal? But let me tell you this other dimension here, and this is really significant. Even pure fruit or vegetable juices give you a lot of calories with relatively little satisfaction. And what I did is I put in your handout some of the research that's looked at this going back into the 1970s. Some of the classic studies, what they did was they just took, say 200 calories of apples and have people eat them as whole apples, wait a while, a few days, few weeks, have the same people, eat them as, apple sauce, just blend up the apples, give them the same number of calories. And then same people, a while later, we call it a washout period, go back to the regular lifestyle and then give it to them as apple juice. And what happens? What they find consistently, there's multiple studies looking at this. If you want to get the most benefit nutrient-wise and the most benefit satisfaction-wise, so that you're not wanting to eat more, eat the whole foods. You say, I just love my orange juice. Well, you love orange juice at the beginning of your meal. What would happen if you ate an orange at the beginning of your meal? Well, how many oranges does it take to make a glass of orange juice? Maybe more than one orange. Say have 2 oranges at the beginning of the meal. You say, wait a minute. If I have 2 or 3 oranges, that's what's in that glass of orange juice. I like a nice big glass of orange juice. I make my own. It takes me 2.5 or 3 or 4 oranges, depending on your juicer. It takes me 4 oranges to make that nice big glass of orange juice. I could never eat 4 oranges. Well, maybe that's the secret. Eat just the 3 oranges. That's your breakfast. Now, I'm not saying that's going to necessarily hold you to the next meal. It'd be nice to have some, maybe some nuts or seeds, something with some fat or some beans or something to give you some staying power, because we've discouraged you from eating between meals. But you get the picture. Those whole foods give you a lot of satisfaction and many few calories for the satisfaction that you get. So if we're talking about satisfaction for calorie, that is really the important message. Okay, well, those are some of the main things in the handout. You've got those abstracts that are really interesting, a number of interesting studies that talk about why it's important to eat whole foods. So let's go to your questions. We'll try to take, Sonia, choose the ones that you think are of most general interest, and we'll cover those in the 15 minutes. What we're doing tonight, again, is between 7 and 8. That's the main content for the program. And then we're going to stay on again tonight because we're not able to join you live on Saturday nights for a couple of weeks. So if you've got extra questions, we'll stay by till 8:30 tonight. But if you blocked off from 7 to 8, that's the main content. And let's take some of those most pressing questions. Go ahead, Sonia.
Did you want me to also read a couple of comments? I thought they were very.
Please.
So.
And tell the person's name if they've got their name on there. If
Bonnie says, lost 7 pounds as of yesterday morning. Thank you.
Tremendous.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Bonnie. And then Gloria says, I am so thankful with all the advice that you both are sharing. I am taking the psyllium 3 times a day and I feel my body so different, more healthy. I have homegrown basil, so I make a tea and add the psyllium, and something is helping me there. I am able to sleep now since I am taking this. I am more restful. Thank you so much.
Oh, I love this. Let's just stop here because, and I'm glad you mentioned it. If you look at the newest edition of the handout, some folks have been saying, well, how can we take this psyllium? The bottom line is you can take it any way you want. And, psyllium has been around for many years. It was popularized in the product Metamucil. And Metamucil has some artificial flavorings and colorings, a lot of them, but that's fine. If that helps you, use it. If you want to just do that, you don't have to make a Jello. You don't have to mix it with basil. You can just put and we added this to the information for the first week. If you're going through the program or if you're on the road, this is a great one. I know we may not have Stacy with us, but if you're on the road, bring a container of Metamucil. There's other preparations. Consyl, Konsyl is another one, another branded one. Or go into a health food store and get the powdered psyllium seed husk. And we say put a heaping teaspoon in 8 ounces of water. And you may not want it to gel. So put cold water in it, stir that in quickly, and then just drink that down. That counts as well. So any way you can get that soluble fiber, it can be guar gum or psyllium seed. Those 2 fibers have special benefits as far as stabilizing blood sugar, curbing appetite, lowering cholesterol. So those are 2 that we've used for many years and recommended to patients. What else have we got, Sonia?
So then Shirley Sherwin says, what about the 0 sugar soft drinks?
Okay. This is a great question. I didn't address this in the handout. Sonia, if you'd be so kind, make a note. We probably should put this in here. So here's the interesting thing that we've found. We're trying to help you develop lifelong habits that are beneficial. What I've found in working with patients over the years, if they substitute a 0-calorie soft drink for the caloric soft drink, it really hasn't changed their habit patterns. And here's the thing that I'm especially concerned about. If you say, well, I always have my soft drink with lunch or with supper or whatever the meal is, well, what happens when you go out to eat and you ask for the Coke Zero or whatever, and they say, oh, we don't, have that option. And so we're much more into saying, can you find a healthier alternative that doesn't even look like the old one? Now, having said that, remember, your challenge is to set the bar so you can clear it. And if you say, listen, to leave off anything like that, this is too much, then yes, you're leaving off sugar-sweetened beverages, you're leaving off caloric beverages, and that is fulfilling the goal for week 3. So that option meets the goal, but I'm kind of giving you the extra step beyond. And I didn't put any of this literature in the handout. Sonia, if you're so kind, maybe you jot this down too. There is some interesting literature about what happens when you drink or eat these artificially sweetened things. You might think, well, this is going to decrease my eating. There's actually some suggestions in some of the research that it actually may increase what you eat. And I don't, and you say, well, how do you explain that? Is it like the body saying, well, you fooled me. The last time, I thought I was getting calories, I got nothing. I better eat more at this meal. Whether that's what's going on or it's something else, there's some really interesting stuff. And at the end of the day, if you were to say, what's the ideal program? I would say the best beverage is water. Okay. But I know a lot of you aren't there. If you're going from a caloric soft drink to a 0-calorie soft drink, you are doing great. And that fulfills the goals for week 3. What other questions, Sonia?
Okay. Another comment also, Gloria says, I forgot to mention that my blood sugar is going down too. And that's awesome. That's another.
Yeah, it's awesome, but it also reminds me about something that's in the handout earlier. This program really does work. It's not like Sonia and I said, we're just been so bored on Saturday nights. Let's do some kind of a program and let's just talk about stuff and we'll tell people it works. No, this stuff really works. And we tell people we're talking about this. If you're on medications for your blood pressure, your blood sugar, you need to be monitoring those things and communicating with your providers, because you could get in trouble with your blood sugar being too low. If you a lot of the older diabetes medicines, including insulin and what we call the sulfonylureas, these would be things like glipizide and glyburide and maybe brand names like glucotrol or Amaryl. Some of these things that you may be taking for your blood sugar, they'll lower a normal sugar. So as your sugars are coming down with these healthy lifestyle habits, they could get too low. So make sure you're keeping an eye. Same is true with blood pressure. Blood pressure is very responsive to lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that I know and that Stacy had mentioned in her question, and I don't think we addressed, she was on tips for when you're traveling or eating, eating fast food. When fast food, it seems like, one of your only options. Are there healthier? I mean, I'm kind of elaborating on her point, but she said about eating fast foods for when you're traveling.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned foods that
options.
were fast, but I didn't mention fast foods. I was talking
Yeah.
about the canned greens and stuff like that. But it is interesting. Most of even fast food restaurants today have something that's a healthier option. So if your back is just against the wall, maybe it's a salad at McDonald's. And I haven't been in McDonald's to order a salad, but people have told me you can, get a salad there. I know some people will go and get a fresco style bean burrito at Taco Bell. Someone say, well, that's not the best food. Well, if you have no other options and you're traveling, it's pretty simple, fare, but not a lot of, there's no cheese or, other, things that we're going to be talking about in more detail later. And avoiding the soft drinks is just really huge when you're out. Even if it's buying bottled water, is you say, well, I hate spending money for bottled water. I've heard people say that. You're better to spend the money on bottled water than anything with calories. If you can stomach the bottled water, we'll drink that. And if you haven't noticed this, if you travel a lot, if you're trying to save money and you're buying water in jugs, the harder the clear, and the clearer the plastic, the less taste is usually imparted to the water. If you look at these smoky cartons and things, they usually impart more of a plastic taste to the water. What other questions we have, Sonia?
Okay, the other question we haven't addressed was the one that said, are you familiar with the app called The Daily Dozen by Dr. Greger? If so, what are your thoughts? And then the second question, are you familiar with Dr. Gundry's diet focused on lectins, the cardiologist that worked at Loma Linda?
Okay, so let's talk about both these. So first of all, Dr. Greger's app. I've not used Dr. I've not used Dr. Go ahead, Sonia.
No, I'm sorry. I
Okay, so Dr. Greger's app. I like Dr. Greger's work. He's put out a lot of good content. I've not used the app, but knowing him, I'm guessing it's probably something worth checking out. So if some of you want to give us a status report on it at some point, or if you want to share your reaction to it, what we're doing though in this program is independent of anything else. So it doesn't mean you can't do something else. Something's been helping you. We're not saying drop it off. But if you haven't been helped by what you've been doing, I would say don't worry about all the other lists that you have and focus on the Fast 8 guidelines, okay? So if you say, no, but this, what I'm doing is really helping me, well, then keep doing it. But if you say, I'm on this program because other things haven't been working, don't, continue all those other 8 or 9 things, that big list of things you have. Just focus on the tasks that we're giving you as we roll out the program. That would be our recommendation. The other thing about Dr. Gundry and lectins. So Dr. Gundry, I'm sure spends millions of dollars in advertising. I'm continually getting things from him and on YouTube feeds and all. And he has some things that are worthwhile. I'm not going to say that they're not, but some of the things to me are not helpful in dealing with patients who have a broader understanding of things. If you jumping on his site the first time, there's some things that probably would help you or likely would help you. But if you're going through these concepts with us, let me talk about lectin. So it's a constituent in beans. And when we wrote our book, The Methuselah Factor, we mentioned this, and I'll mention it again because it ties in with a free option that we have. So you don't need to buy this book to get the 30 daily goals that we roll out. Remember, and this is an option for you if you want to do something different than the weekly goals. We've said for the first 30 days of the program, you can use the goals in the Methuselah Factor. If you don't have the book or don't want to buy the book, we give you all these goals free in the free program, 30 Days to Better Health, that's on the timelesshealinginsights.org website. So as you're going through that, if some of you have done it, and I know some of you have because I've been seeing you signing up, day 4 in this 30-day program. So it's just a different approach than the weekly goals. We're working with you here. They're just smaller daily goals. And some people like that, but other people prefer a weekly program. And the Methuselah Factor is a general program for optimizing health. We do talk about weight loss in it. It's not specifically a weight loss program. But why I'm mentioning day 4 is be big on beans. And we'll talk more about plant foods as we go through this 8-week program. But one of the single most powerful foods for suppressing appetite, for helping you not eat between meals, for stabilizing blood sugar and other things are beans. Beans also happen to have lectins in them. And lectins are not all bad. And we talk just a little bit about it in this chapter of how lectins actually have anti-cancer properties. They actually have anti-obesity properties. So yeah, you can look at some of these, individual constituents in plant foods and say, are these good or bad? I'm not really into that because you're eating the whole plant food, and eating beans, well-cooked beans, are very important. We'll talk about that more as we go through the program. So I don't recommend avoiding beans. We actually encourage it. So we're in the home stretch tonight. So let me mention just a few other things for you. And if you've got other questions, we're going to stay by. But the main content tonight, we're going to wind up in just a few minutes for those of you that do need to leave and allotted an hour. I do want to show my screen one more time for you because I want to remind you about what's happening over the next few weeks. So just want to remind you that next week, we're going to be giving you an opportunity to have your question answered live on Wednesday night of next week, but not on Saturday. So if you've got other questions between now and Wednesday, jump on the spiritual support group. And we've designed this group to appeal to people across the faith spectrum. But as I shared with you previously, I've done a lot with spiritual guidance for people. And what I've done is we've gotten to the point where we say, yeah, we can do these generic spiritual things, but people end up saying, well, how does that work for me? Or what does that really look like? So I'm a Christian. So we're doing the spiritual support group from a Christian framework, but you could be a Muslim, you can be an atheist, jump on and tell us. Say, this works from my perspective too, or this doesn't work. So we are using a Christian framework. We did start the program last week on February 15th. We're continuing weekly from 8 to 9 p.m. We're doing it an hour later, trying to accommodate some of you that are on the West Coast and you have jobs and things during the week, and it'd be a little bit too early to jump on at 7 Eastern. So from 8 to 9 Eastern, if you can't miss it, watch it in real time. you can jump on the video, okay? And like I said, it is from a Christian perspective that we're sharing the material, but you do not need to be a Christian. That doesn't even have to appeal to you. But we wanted to give you something from some actual spiritual perspective, and the spiritual perspective I come from, as well as my co-presenter. So actually, the lion's share of the work is being done by Dr. Patricia Nesbitt. She has her doctorate in ministry, so she's worked as a chaplain and pastor and has a lot of practical suggestions. I really enjoyed a lot of the material she shared last Wednesday. So you're welcome to jump on for that. If you missed it, all of it is available at timelesshealinginsights.org. We're going to end the formal presentation tonight on that note. I want to encourage you. Remember, one of our biggest goals is for you just to stick with the program. Stay engaged. You're successful. If you're sticking with the program and you're doing something every week, you are on the trajectory to success. Do not forget that. Stick with us. The next 2 weeks, Saturday nights, we'll release the video at 7 p.m. That's when it'll become available, 7 p.m. Eastern on Saturday nights, but it will be pre-recorded, but it will walk you through what's coming up in the content the next week of the program. Live interaction every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Thank you for being with us tonight. We now will switch to some of your additional questions that you have for this evening. We'll stay by for up to a half an hour if we've got questions.
So there are 2 more questions right now. One is from Mari, and it's Mary or Mari, I'm not sure how she pronounces it. It's a salts question. She says, is the sea salt Himalayan versions any better, or is the goal to eliminate those 2?
Okay. So if you look at the program goals, and just to kind of give you a feel like where we're headed, this is a good question because you won't be able to ask it next week because it won't be live. But we are talking, if you've got your handout in front of you, go ahead and feel free to just take a look there, because you'll see that the handout rolls out the week 4 goal. And this is not a surprise for any of you that have been keeping up, but what is the week 4 goal? Sonia, are you tracking with that?
I don't have the handout in front of me, sorry.
Okay. But the week 4 goal you'll see is talking about leaving off certain food groups. And do you notice what some of them are? We're talking about these sugary foods and also the salty foods. And we're going to give you a equation that you're going to be using. I'll explain it in more detail. We'll show you some nutrition labels next week. But the goal is for salt that you look at the calories in the food and you compare it with the milligrams of sodium in the food, per serving. So you're looking per serving, how many milligrams of sodium and how many calories per serving. If the milligrams of sodium is greater, we're encouraging you to leave that item off, okay? And like I said, we'll talk more about that. So someone says, well, what about just adding salt? We're generally discouraging people from adding salt at the table. Of course, if you're cooking, you're going to be using some salt. And you say, well, which is the best salt? Should it be sea salt? Should it be Himalayan salt? Pink Himalayan salt? Should it be, Celtic salt? The bottom line is this, and maybe I'll just stop here for a minute because I see some of your chats coming through. If you're having trouble getting the handout and you're with us on real time, put your email address through to Sonia. You can send a private chat, or if you don't care if your email is seen by other people, but I would send it as a private chat to Sonia. And Sonia, please take a note of that, and we'll send you a link to the handout, okay? So if you're getting frustrated, I see some of you engaging that way. So make sure we have some way to contact you, or else come through the platform. But back now to the question about salt. Okay, so is there a difference? Yes. I mean, some of these things, sea salt will give you some more micronutrients and things that you're not getting in the regular salt. But if you actually look at the sodium content, they're not vastly different. Okay. You say, but what about light salt? That has, potassium chloride in addition to the sodium chloride. Well, just look at those numbers. We're looking especially at the sodium content. We're trying to decrease that. The sodium chloride, we find for a lot of people, drives high blood pressure, it drives fluid retention. And a lot of people's frustration sometimes with weight relates to fluid weight. And just helping people not retain so much fluid. They'll feel better, their weight will come down. And so salt is something on the list that we want to address as we go through a comprehensive program to optimize your health and optimize your weight. So yes, try to decrease all the salt you're using. Of course, if you're cooking, recipes, try using less salt than is called for in the recipe. Sure, if you want to use a sea salt or Himalayan salt, you can use that, but it's not like, oh, those are fine. We'll just, throw those all over our foods and we'll be good to go. Okay.
Can I make a couple comments on the salt as well?
Please, Sonia.
So many of you, if you cook, those who cook probably already are aware of this, but if you're cooking, say for instance, beans or any legume or whatever, if you don't add the salt while it's cooking, wait until it's all done and right before you're going to, serve it, and then put the salt in. It will take a lot less salt to make it taste as salty as you would like it, because it hasn't had a chance to actually soak into inside the beans. And then the other thing is, if you're making soups and stuff, the more liquidy a soup is, the more salt it takes to make it taste salty. So if you're using thicker, more like stews and that kind of thing, if you make something that's not really liquidy type soup, it doesn't take as much salt to make it taste salty as well.
Yeah, and the other thing that we may talk about a little in detail in the presentation is and maybe we won't. So let's just cover it here. And that is, there's this interesting relationship between sugar and salt. And these two things mask each other, but they typically increase the palatability of food. So when you look at processed foods, they often add a lot of sugar or sweetening and a lot of salt. And maybe I'll tell on my wife here. Maybe I'm telling on myself as well. She's smiling. She knows where I'm going with this. But if you haven't heard my story, I had a real problem with sweets at a time in my life. I had to make a clean break with them. That's what I needed to do. And so my tastes changed. And this is one of the messages in this program. When you make some of these lifestyle changes and stick with them, your tastes change. So my tastes changed, and I didn't like things as sweet. And so when my wife would make things, I'd say, Sonia, cut the sugar in that or cut the sweetener. And Sonia was making some cornbread once, and being the good, loving wife that she was, wanting her husband to like it, she cut the sweetener in the cornbread. But Sonia, you didn't cut one ingredient in that cornbread recipe. What was it?
Yeah, that was many years ago, back before I realized that salt and sugar mask each other in flavor. And so I cut the sugar way down, but I didn't cut the salt. And it was so salty that even the dog wouldn't eat it. I mean, it tasted like brine, and it was just the same amount of salt that the recipe called for, but because there was virtually no sweetener in it, it was just unbearably salty.
And it's really worth mentioning this tonight because, if you don't think about this relationship, as you go down on your salt intake, you may find that you don't need as much sugar either. And if you decrease your sugar, you find you don't need as much salt. So these are, some people say, well, why do you put these together? I can see the sugar, that's going to affect my weight. Actually, I've already pre-recorded. We haven't finished all the editing or something, the message for next week. So that's why I'm trying to think what all I covered. I can't make it too many promises of anything being different because we already filmed it. But the whole point is simply this. Both of these things are important, and that's why we roll them out together. What about other questions, Sonia?
Okay, one in the same line, somebody asked, what about Bragg's liquid aminos? And then we have a bunch of other questions on chia and flax and stuff. So
okay. So Bragg's liquid aminos, I think this person maybe got some inside scoop on one of the ongoing discussions that my wife and I have. Sonia is, so if you're not familiar with these, Sonia, why don't you tell people how you would describe Bragg's liquid aminos? How would you describe that?
it's kind of like, it's kind of like a soy sauce, but it's an unfermented product.
Okay. And so it is high in sodium, and It does. I think it has some of these biogenic amines. So these are compounds that for some people, it could trigger headaches. There could be some other issues with it. Some people have raised questions about how it affects neurotransmitters in the brain and things like that. So Sonia does use them some, but I try to discourage her from using them. Is that an accurate description, Sonia?
Probably. Yeah, I really don't use it a lot. Yeah, occasionally. And
But you've found other alternatives, right? And what other things have you used? Because I know you've had recipes that use them and you've gotten away from them.
well, you basically just have to use some salt instead, but you have to use obviously less than the amount of Bragg's by far.
Yeah. So yeah, again, so it's a concentrated sodium source. That would be the main thing as far as the discussion for now. What about other questions, Sonia?
Okay, so there's several other questions here. One is from Bonnie. She says, do chia seeds work the same as psyllium seeds for blood sugar and satiety?
I do not know the answer to that. So I've seen a lot of research on psyllium and guar gum. And Sonia, if you jot down a note, maybe we can look into this. So the soluble fibers are especially good for these properties. For example, your flaxseed will have more insoluble fiber and omega-3s, same with the chia seeds. I'm not sure how much soluble fiber is in the chia seed. That's what the question is. So it seems to be a soluble fiber function. And two of those really good soluble fiber sources are guar gum and psyllium seed husk. So
yeah, the other thing is the psyllium seed husks have 0 calories, whereas the chia seed and flaxseed will have calories. But granted, chia seeds and flax seeds are very healthy for you. They're a wonderful source of omega-3 fatty acids, and then of course they have fiber as well. The other nice thing is they work marvelously as an egg substitute in baking products. Because they bind so nicely, you can substitute ground flaxseed. Trying to remember, I want to say it's 1 tablespoon ground flax and 2 tablespoons of water, I think. Maybe it's 3 tablespoons water to substitute for 1 egg. I'm sure you could look it up online, but it makes a very nice gelatinous material when it's soaked together that works great for binding and also making products more moist.
And Sonia's giving you an important principle that'll help you as we roll out other aspects of the program, because as we get into week 6 and beyond, we're going to challenge you with trying to leave off the animal products. And this will be an option that maybe Sonia, make a note of that, and you can double check, and we'll try to see if we can't sneak that into the handout. Okay.
For the becoming
The flaxseed, the egg substitute. Okay.
Oh, okay, for egg substitute.
Okay.
Okay, and
What
then the
other
other
questions?
Yes, another question. I have finely ground flaxseed. Will that? Well, I guess that's kind of part of it. Virginia said, "Well, I have finely ground flaxseed. Will that work?" So I guess it's on the same venue, the same vein as far as working for the facility.
Yeah. So basically, again, so the things that we know have these beneficial effects are psyllium seed husks and guar gum. Guar gum, if you're having trouble finding it, the cheapest place to get it is in a bakery supply store or online at a bakery supply retailer or whole. I mean, it might even be a wholesaler. So yeah, if you can get the guar gum is really not that expensive when you buy it in those venues. If you go to a health food store, it can be pretty pricey, but it's a very good soluble fiber. Sonia, other questions?
Okay. Okay. Oh, Gloria just made a comment. I used hot water to mix the ground flaxseed. Okay, that would make it gel a lot faster for sure. And then, okay, Melinda has a question. Do I drop off the fat-free half and half from decaf coffee this week or not? Because it doesn't have sugar and I didn't see it listed.
Okay. So the ideal goal, so come back to week 3's goal. The ideal goal is to leave off all caloric beverages. Okay. That's the ideal. And so even a fat-free half and half would have calories. So on that basis, we'd say that would be ideal to leave that off. If you say, you know what, there's no way I could leave that off, but I'm drinking 3 cans of Pepsi a week, I could leave those off. That's the sugar sweetened beverage. Great. Okay. If that's the bar you could clear, if you say, you know what, I think I could leave off, all the caloric beverages, that would be the ideal for this week. So we try to give you the ideal. So it's anything with calories. And we will cut a few corners. You want to put a little lemon in. Yeah, there's some calories there, fruit infused water or something. So it's not like we're trying to make this doable for you. And the goal is, what hurdle can you clear? The bigger the hurdle that you're clearing, the more likely you're going to see more results in a short time. But remember, our big goal is not to see how much the scale changes over 8 weeks. It's to see if you can develop one or more lifestyle habits that will put you on a trajectory to better health and better weight over the long term. And again, it may be a few pounds that you see over the 8 weeks, that you drop. Most everyone, if they're adopting these things, are going to lose some weight. And if you're not, definitely talk with us, okay? Because there's probably something we're missing in these equations. But as far as you and as far as your lifestyle, so if you're having that experience, if any of you are getting frustrated, remember, our goal is for you to stick with us for the 8 weeks. It may be the 6th week program that really is the life-changing thing for you. So you're experimenting with different things each week. If you can, continue those things as you go through these 8 weeks. If you can't, drop off the ones you think were, too much for you to handle, and just do the new challenge for week 3, the same with week 4 and going forward. Okay, what's next?
Okay, next question from Bonnie. If drastically reducing salt, is it necessary to take iodine in states like Michigan where iodine is absent in the ambient environment?
Okay. Iodine is a tricky mineral. And if you get too much iodine, it can shut your thyroid down. If you get too little iodine, that can be problems. If you've had habitually too little iodine, and then you start taking more, that for some people causes problems. So it's a real tricky mineral to work with. And the way we've tried to take care of it from a public health standpoint is put iodine in salt. And you're right, the Great Lakes, typically we used to call that the goiter belt. Now we eat a lot of foods and things from all over the country. So we don't tell people, the bottom line is I don't tell people to take an iodine supplement. Okay.
One thing I would mention on that too, unless you were preparing all your own foods and not eating any foods that come, processed foods, or anything that comes with salt added to it, you're probably, because I'm pretty sure that the salt they add to foods in processed foods has iodine in that salt. I doubt it's a iodine-free salt. I don't know if you know.
I don't know that.
But I would say that if you're just using an iodine-free salt, that could be a problem. I actually had a patient once who started getting hypothyroid, and the only reason we could identify was that they were not using any iodinated salt, and when they started doing that, their numbers went back to normal. So it's possible, but I think if your body does need a little bit of salt, but most people eat way too much. So if you're getting the amount that your body needs, I would think you're probably getting enough iodine with it. That would be my thought, but like you said, it's kind of a tricky thing. Okay, so some other. Okay, and no, the Himalayan salt typically does not have iodine. Someone, Gloria, mentioned that, and I've not seen it listed as iodine, having iodine in it, but maybe there are some now, but I'm not aware of any. And then Melinda also asked, do you have to drink more fluids when you use psyllium husks or Metamucil?
Okay, so when we have someone use psyllium or guar gum, we always have them use it with water. So you never take it dry, or you never just take, sometimes you can find encapsulated psyllium. So the way psyllium and guar gum work is they pull water to themselves. So I think we included this in the updated handout, and it's in the current edition, I believe, because someone asked about it. They said, well, my stools are loose. Is psyllium going to be a problem? Will it make my stools too loose? Because, people take it as a laxative. Well, it's actually the opposite. So it's kind of interesting. So these soluble fibers are bowel regulators. What they do is they pull water to themselves. So if your stool is hard, if you're constipated, it'll pull water into your stool from your body and make your stool softer. But if you're having diarrhea, we also treat patients with diarrhea with soluble fiber because it'll pull water from the diarrhea and make the stool more formed. Now, the problem is if you're somewhat dehydrated and you take the psyllium without water, then that can actually even cause an obstruction in some cases. So we always say either make it into a jello or take it with water. And you'll see the instructions on psyllium preparations. Typically, like I said, like putting a teaspoon in 8 ounces of water and drinking that would be, something standard. Sonia, we have anything else coming through?
I don't see any more questions. I was just scanning through them to make sure we hadn't missed any. So if anybody else has any more questions, now is the time to put them up.
Okay, well,
but
barring something.
I
go
haven't,
ahead.
no, I don't know if I haven't gotten any private messages as far as emails of people that couldn't download stuff, at least unless they would come somewhere else than the chat. Or where would they show up? I don't know. I'm not very techy either. So
yeah, please feel free just to respond. Some of you have been responding through the through Timeless Healing Insights through the website, so you can connect with us there. You'll see that option. And I see some of you, as we've been doing the program, have sent me things. So some of those, Sonia, may be the ones.
oh, okay.
Yeah. And then as far as lists of things with sodium contents and tables, we're going to have a number of things in the next updated handout. So we'll have a lot of that material there. If you're wanting a lot of more material about it, we have a gracious arrangement with the publisher. Actually, Compass Health that we talked about earlier is a publisher as well. So Compass Health graciously gave us permission. It probably helps that I'm the president, and it's going to allow us to put some of the graphics from our 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure book in your handout. You've seen some of them already, but we have some good good tables that look at things like sodium content and things. So we're going to try to put those in the next video that'll be out next week, as well as in the handout. And we also published the Methuselah factor. So I think we're putting in a few graphics from there too. So we're trying to give you those resources and save your budget from buying the books. But if you want more material, we have a whole section on sodium in the blood pressure book, and we have a chapter on the sugar and salt, both of those in the Methuselah factor book. Did I see another question come through, Sonia?
Well, it says, how do we get the foods with sodium list? So maybe I thought maybe that's what you.
Yeah. So the main thing, and you'll see this in the handout, and it will be in the video, is it's not a list. It's actually just a simple rule, and that is you look at any food, look at the nutrition information, look at the number of calories in the food, and then compare it with the milligrams of sodium. If the milligrams of sodium are more than the calories, we're asking you to leave that off. That'll be from week 4. That'll be the challenge next week. Okay, so you don't have to do that this week. Enjoy your salty foods. No, well, anyway, you get the message. We're rolling things out as we go along. Okay. Yes, someone identified most processed foods. You're going to often, and you might be surprised though. Let me tell you the most surprising one. Maybe I don't know if I have this in the video or not. And that is corn chips versus corn flakes. Just go in the grocery store.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's amazing. But most breakfast cereals, corn flakes, have more sodium, much more sodium than corn chips. Okay, it doesn't mean they're not as healthy a food, because other issues, those corn chips, most of them are fried. We've already asked you to leave, some of you to challenge you to leave the fried things off, but just kind of interesting when it comes to salt. Bottom line is you can't always judge by your taste. You can't say, well, the cornflakes, it doesn't taste very salty. Again, remember, sugar, masking, salt, taste, that's what's going on with a lot of those breakfast foods. So you got to be reading labels when we get to that 4th week. So good questions that are preparing you for something we won't be able to interact with as far as the content next week. It'll just be a video that we've prepared to go along with week 4. Is that pretty much it, Sonia, tonight?
Yes, I think so. Just Charlene says she needs the handout. She sent her email address. So
Okay.
I will give that to you.
Okay. So remember, if you're looking to interact in a live session, we have those options still for you. Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And I see a few of you are still not getting links to everything. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'll try to see if we could talk with our IT people, find out where the problem is. Okay. Thank you so much. All of you are successful because you're sticking with the program, whether you watch this in real time, like many of you did, or whether you're going to jump on and watch the video. We're encouraged. Many of you are giving us good reports. Some of you shared it live with us tonight, but we're thankful for each one of you. Even if you haven't seen that scale moving the direction you want it yet, go through the program. Everyone who finishes the program is a success story. It's only the time frame that's in question. Okay, success to each one of you. I'm Dr. David DeRose, my wife, Dr. Sonia DeRose. We've enjoyed being with you. 2 pre-recorded programs released at 7 p.m. Saturday nights, the next 2 evenings. We're planning to be back with you live after that. Wednesday night meetings always live. Even if I'm not able to jump on, we've got another co-facilitator who'll be with you. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.